can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Corinne Milien, and she is the founder of Work, W-R-K, Let's Do Work.com. And before I formally introduce you, Corinne, you have an amazing background. I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. And since this is part of the Top Women Leaders series, we had Laura Barnard, who actually introduced us, BREAKTHRU Brands, and I was complimenting you on your logo and your brand, and she's like, "That's BREAKTHRU." So we'll talk about some of the conversations you had, because you had a long conversation about your vision and what you're looking for. We also had Marsha Daywood, which is she talked about angel investing the smart and healthy way, and with Mindshift Capital and the Angel Capital Association. We had the secrets to standing out and growing your business with Winnie Hart of Twin Engine. Cheryl Conti talked about defeating racism in startup funding of Impact Seat, which kind of relates to what we're going to talk about here. So you and Cheryl should know each other at some point. And that and many more.
I expect you to make an introduction.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just did. I'm going to send her the episode. And before I introduce Corinne, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the full strategy, and all the execution production. So Corinne, we kind of call ourselves the magic elves that run around in the background and make it look easy for the host. And that's what we do. And, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. And part of the reason I love the podcast is I like to make connections for people, just like I'm going to connect Cheryl and Corinne together and my past guests too. So check out more episodes. And Corinne, we're going to dig into the vision, the mission, but Corinne Milien is a servant leader focusing on solutions to increase diversity and inclusion within the workforce, and it really advanced professional leadership opportunities for the underrepresented. And as I mentioned, you could check them out. The founder of Work, it's letsdowrk.com. What they do is they're a talent sourcing firm, and they specialize in connecting sports, media, entertainment companies, really any companies. And they have a community of qualified talent, and she's really driven to eliminate bias and barriers for those historically excluded from traditional hiring practices. And she also is a co-founder of a 501c3, the Winning Edge Leadership Academy, that empowers and elevates minority student athletes and young professionals as the next generation of leaders in sports and business. And she served as a graduate assistant for the legendary coach Pat Summitt of the University of Tennessee before. Yeah, exactly. I went to the Orange Bowl, actually. The Volunteers won this last year.
Good luck. Well, now you have to start coming to all the games.
And I just kept saying "Go Vols." It was great. People loved it. And this is before working as an event supervisor for ESPN, where she managed several of the company's preeminently owned and operated athletic contests and events. So we'll hear about that. And Corinne, I also wanted to mention too that you were recognized by Adidas and Impact Hub as one of the 8 social entrepreneurs of color creating impact and delivering initiatives that intersect sports equity and creativity. So thanks for joining me.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's the best way to start my Friday that's going to end on the golf course. So I'm excited.
Talk about the work you did a little bit with BREAKTHRU and the vision. And I'll pull up your website. We can see the beautiful brand, but talk about the behind the scenes vision and mission.
I am a country girl. I am not a city mouse. And I was in Chicago a couple summers ago working with Wilson Sporting Goods, one of my partners. with my nonprofit. And I had my dog and we were staying downtown, like right across from Trump Tower, all the cars, all the things. And after like 6 days, I had to get out of there. I hit Laura up. Her and her family literally hadn't even moved all their boxes in. And now I'm asking if me and my dog can crash on a bed, right?
How did you know her?
We had done some work. I was managing director of Pro Sports Assembly, an advocacy group for professionals working in sports. And she did some work with our members and helping them unlock their brands. So we never actually met in person. But I said, hey, I got to get out of here. Can I come crash? And she said, sure, I got kids, I got dogs, we were moving. And I said, you don't even know, it's fine. And one night we're talking at dinner, and I'm a pretty big believer in closed mouths don't get fed. So and they're pretty curious as well. We had a lot of synergies in our love for basketball, and they were probing me about what I wanted to do and kind of some challenges that I was facing as a founder. And they took one conversation into, hey, we're starting BREAKTHRU Brands. We think we could really help you. There's some resources that align here. And again, I'm a pretty risky person. I let people know what I'm trying to do because you never know who can help. And without them, I don't know if you're showing off this awesome website right now.
You can see it.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. And it really was about empowering me as a leader. So they created the foundation of the site, but I'm able to go in there and make updates and edits and change my picture and stuff like that. So it wasn't like, okay, we're doing this and then you have to lean on us for everything. It's really been an empowering relationship that now sees me as an advisor for them and helping connect them with as many founders and women as I can.
Yeah, if you're watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, we're looking at the letsdowork.com website and the About Us page, where you can see some of the companies that they've done work with, and you can see Corinne's bio and everything else that they do here. Just talk a little bit about, I mentioned, what work does, but talk a little bit more about, what you do as a company and some of the services you offer.
Yeah. And it's funny, as you were reading the bio, it speaks to the evolution of work and how we started. And the work really, I started 7 years ago with my nonprofit and doing that talent sourcing at the foundation level of professional development, career development, intentional relationship building for talent that turned into, can you help us connect with talent during the summer of 2020? And a lot of organizations making a commitment to being more serious about their hiring practices. And that's not what the nonprofit was built for. So work came about to formalize, instead of asking for donations, sending invoices, right? In the talent sourcing space. And that evolved into really coming in and providing HR and employment services to our businesses, and our clients. So you see there, Eastside Golf, they are a growing company that went from wearing sweatshirts on the golf course to being in a documentary directed by Hannah Storm, and everybody wanting to wear their clothes on and off the golf course. One of the only brand to have a collaboration with Jordan, and making me pay a lot of money to look cool on the golf course. I don't have to. The discount is not as good as people would assume, but I'm gonna support those guys. I hired their very first intern with my nonprofit, and as they grew, we grew together. And so to see that when you talk about relationships, the relationship that I have with Eastside to go again from their first intern to their first full-time employees in December, Disney couldn't write up a better story.
So with Eastside Golf, what kind of work did you do with them? So it sounds like you helped them find an intern. You also helped them find some full-time staff too.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was just help us find an intern, right? Now we are helping them stay compliant as they grow from just the two founders and maybe a couple of contractors to having full-time staff, vendors and contractors, office space. So we're coming in and providing the full suite of HR. They don't they are not, we're in the new generation where we don't have office space. We don't need a lot of people. Fractional is a new wave. So we are essentially fractional HR. So we're coming in and doing payroll processing, employee benefits administration, talent management. What does Taylor look like in 3 years if she's at this company starting out as an executive assistant, right? So we are coming in, making sure they are able to focus on their goals of intersecting golf and the culture while we take care of their people.
I really want to hear the evolution. You have a fascinating evolution of your career. And it's, I don't know if we want to start at what point does the Air Force come into play, and why the Air Force?
I was a good, bad kid in high school. I was student council president, but I also found any opportunity not to take class. So ASVAB one day, hey, you can get out of class if you take the ASVAB. Sure. Took the ASVAB. A couple of weeks later, the recruiter's calling, hey, you scored really well. Let's talk. Sure, to get me out of class again. End up saying to me, you'll be a pharmacy tech. You can take this degree. And after 4 years, blah, 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 convinced my mom, 17 years old, first generation American. So military, that was not a thing. So, but my dad was gung-ho about it. And it was just an opportunity. So I am 17 going through basic training. And by the time I'm 18, I'm in Germany, serving my country, learning a lot about that side of the world. As a first generation American, I had already been used to traveling. It was get on a plane, somebody in Haiti will pick you up and then they'll put you back on the plane at the end of the summer and then we'll go from there, right? So the traveling wasn't new to me. But being able to go to Amsterdam for 3 New Years in a row, being able to go watch a movie in Luxembourg, going to spend 4 days in Paris for my birthday as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and also serving my country. I sometimes forget how hard my job was. It was command and control, but I always found time to get involved. I won the Volunteer Airman of the Year because I was coaching basketball on base. I was coaching softball. And that's kind of where I got into sports, actually. Sports was not a big part of my life growing up. I played golf since I was 7, and I played on my high school team, but it wasn't like I was on a basketball team in the track. That was not the case, but it was fun. My friends did it and it got me out of things. So getting on base though, and starting to coach and realizing the development opportunities and the ability to influence the next generation, I was hooked. And I upset the base commander's daughter by not making her the captain. And he was very impressed enough to write a recommendation to the Air Force Academy. So it was, and he just retired from generals of the Air Force, actually. But without him seeing the desire to be fair and equal in all opportunities, I'm not at the Air Force Academy doing what I was doing.
What was it like, Corinne, and being a woman of color in the Air Force? I imagine it's predominantly male and predominantly white.
Yes, and then in Germany, and where our offices was in a hangar with the mechanics. So it was like the manliest of the men overnight for 4 days in a row. Like it was all the things. But I think it really propelled my ability to be a chameleon, right? I can go in any room and find some way that you and I are connected. We have something in common. And when you focus on the ways that we have things in common, all the other things can go away. And now we have open dialogue. We can challenge each other. And that's what I've been doing for a very long time, is challenging people. But they see where I'm coming from. The empathy is real because I've been in all these spaces where people told me the only reason I got into the Air Force Academy was because they were meeting a quota or whatever the case may be. But, I got a big smile. I'm pretty charming, and I tend to disarm people in their preconceived notions.
What did you find were people's preconceived notions?
Well, I'm also from south of Atlanta. So, and the hair is usually like this. And so most people are very surprised that I've played golf since I was 7. They always ask, oh, what position did you play, or what event did you run? And I'm like, no, golf. I was on the high school team. So that's a preconception. Both English is not my first language. And I was always like a translator for my parents. So I saw a lot more of the preconceived notions were put on my parents, right? Like, oh, they're not very smart or something like that. And I'm like sitting here, my mom speaks 6 languages and you're telling her she's not very smart. So, but I think that just made me, I don't want to downplay, right? Like, I don't want to say water off a duck's back, because you feel it. It hurts. It takes a little chunk out of the armor once in a while, especially when you know you should be in the room. But it was something that is a part of my story and a part of my journey, that I look back on, and it makes me able to sit in a conference room with 10 people that don't look like me, never had the same experience, but bring my authentic self, because it's not going to kill me, obviously.
What made your parents come to the US?
Probably the same as most other people, opportunity. And it's funny you ask, because they definitely lived a better life in Haiti. It wasn't a situation where they're escaping some whatever in their immediate lives. You know, my mother, I have a master's degree, and I'm one of the least educated people, right? So it was never, I think, like the story people want to paint for immigrants is like, oh, it was hard and this is why they came over here. It was just an opportunity. Both my parents are educated. I'm supposed to be a doctor, lawyer, nurse, engineer, or architect right now. So my mom is still holding out. She still drops little links to law school. I'm like, Mom, we're way past that. So yeah.
Now you could just help the doctor's offices, law firms, and everything with their hiring, right?
Yeah, well, I used to think working in sports was going to impress her because she could come to games and hang out. And I think she went to one Lady Vol basketball game, and maybe 2, because she only knows Brittany Griner, and a game in Madison Square Garden with Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and Michigan State. She was not impressed with either experience. I even got a VIP hospitality, go wherever you want, backs, press pass.
She didn't care.
Zero.
Let's move on to the Vols, University of Tennessee, and what did you learn from Pat Summitt?
People matter. By the time I got there, she had already won 8 national championships, but she never left an arena if there are people still waiting on an autograph, right? Like, we did camp, and at the time, this is when camps were big time. Like, there was team camp, there was individual camp, there was all these camps. We were having 1,000 girls on campus, and every kid got assigned basketball. And it's so funny because I can talk to someone now who is there in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they went to a Pat Summitt camp. They know they have that ball. They can tell me where that ball is that they got from summer camp. And she didn't have to do that. We would be in another arena and people would want to autograph, and she's staying until everyone is getting one. The same with the letters, like everybody's getting a response. It was in every decision she made, people were at the cornerstone of that decision. And I think when we see people at a super successful level, we assume like, oh, they're so hard and like isolated and all these things. And she was surrounded by love because she put love out there as well. She homemade ice cream on official visits. Oh, you have a project you need, but we have this really important game. Go and do that project because what you're doing after basketball matters. So she did make me cry my first week every day. She wasn't even in the state of Tennessee, but it's okay.
Why is that?
I was a mess. I was like coming out of undergraduate Bemidji State, Minnesota, and I'm just drove from Bemidji to Knoxville, and I don't know what's going on. And now I'm responsible for preparing for camp and moving in freshmen that I never met. And I was not doing great. I was not.
What is your favorite Pat Summit story personally, whether it's game, practice, outside?
I don't know if this is a good story, but one year we only lost 3 games. 3 games. That's how many games we lost. And I remember one of those losses was in the Virgin Islands. It was like we were not supposed to lose in the Virgin Islands. And after the game, all the players were like sulking and moping around. But we had a catamaran ride arranged for them to go on. And they are in their minds thinking, we just lost. We're not going on this catamaran ride. This is not what we're about to do. She came downstairs into that dining room and said, y'all are gonna have fun. You're gonna go on this catamaran. You're gonna do, we got to move on. We have to, this is what we came to do. That's not what happened, but now we're here and we have this trip. We're not letting these people down. People, are counting on us to do this. And, if I'm a coach, when I was a coach, if we just lost, I'm mad. Nobody, right? Like we ain't going on the catamaran, but she literally forced them to have fun. And it was a very interesting catamaran ride.
The character for people really shows through when they lose.
Yes. And again, we had only lost 3 games that season.
So moving on to ESPN. What were some of the things, some of your favorite stories from ESPN, and what did you learn from ESPN? As a basketball junkie, being able to go to Puerto Rico on a Coast Guard base and literally build out an entire basketball arena in a hangar while they're still running missions, right? So in Puerto Rico, we're dealing with local vendors to put the lights, put the seats, put the court, and literally every element. Me and Scott Pomeroy, shout out to Scott. We are on site handling that for 4 teams to come and play basketball. So Minnesota and Louisville, who at the time the Patinos were both coaching. So Mama Patino put them on the same plane and made everybody travel together. And I was like, you saving us money, ma'am. Thank you. And the Coast Guard Academy. And I'm trying to remember the other team, but 4 teams playing a doubleheader in Puerto Rico on live television was this was kind of when they were just starting to do the ships, basketball courts on the ships and stuff like that. So being able to create unique experiences, not just for the fans, but for the players. Another memorable story is one of my events was the MEAC SWAC Challenge, and it's an HBCU football game, Labor Day, and it's on ESPN. You said what? Who is playing?
Well, I'm going to generalize it because I try to create this kind of experience every year. But it's a team from the MEAC and a team from the SWAC, and it's on ESPN at the time. And for a lot of these guys, this is the first time they're on ESPN, or maybe the only time, because at the time, HBCUs weren't getting a lot of airtime. But instead of giving another backpack or another journal, I said, let's give them haircuts. Let's find local barbers in Daytona Beach. Let's rent out the ballroom in the hotel. And just set up office hours with barbers, and the guys can come down as a team, hang out and get haircuts. Even though they wear helmets and all these things, you don't see that. When you look good, you feel good, you play good. And those were the kind of experiences that really propelled and motivated me during my time at ESPN.
I love it. What were some of I love to hear, I don't know, any other creative things that you were able to implement and do just for ideas. There's founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs listening. I love the haircut. It's like outside the box. What else? What other creative things did you do with the events?
Now I do professional headshots. So I'm actually on a personal journey to provide 10,000 headshots. So anytime I go to a conference or I'm speaking or whatever, I have an app, and people can scan the app and literally take a professional headshot on the spot by themselves or with a buddy. And that could be the difference between them having a LinkedIn picture with their friend like this, or not having anything, right? I'll talk to a lot of athletes, and usually the only picture they have is of them in a uniform, and they are so much more than an athlete. And so if I could talk to a group of basketball players and now they have headshots in 20 seconds that they can now put on their LinkedIn to help them see hey, it's not that scary over here. Come over here and get a job. So I'm very much about an experienced person. That's my jam. Like I'm everywhere and nowhere. I'm antisocial, but I like to be, to provide experience. So it's weird.
I love that headshots. And it's also a lot of times people's first impression. And I tell people, treat LinkedIn like a high converting landing page, because there are people, even if they know your company, they'll go directly to LinkedIn and look you up. And I had a person on my podcast yesterday, and he showed up, and I was like, how honest do I want to be with this person? I told him, I said, your LinkedIn headshot does not represent you well. I mean, in general, because they're really impressive. And what they had on there was nowhere near what showed up in front of me. So it was really interesting. So I love what you said about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I do. I'm a Georgia Tech women's basketball season ticket holder, and I take a lot of like leads or clients or people I want to maintain a relationship. Come to the Georgia Tech game with me. They're courtside seats, so that's a new experience for some people. They've never been courtside at a game. And
I'm coming down, Corinne.
Done. I use Calendly, and you can find any game, and it sends you all the stuff, and we have a good time. And the coaching staff at one point were very Lady Vol-esque. Like the person who helped me get the job at Tennessee was an associate head coach at Georgia Tech. So when the staff got the job, I immediately became a season ticket holder. Day one, I have not missed a game in 4 seasons, because that coaching staff has shown up for me in my professional journey. And I wanted to show up for them. So very big on relationships. So when you mentioned it at the beginning, I was like, yeah, this is going to be good.
ESPN seems like a dream job for you, right? So talk about what was next and what was the decision to move on.
I think what actually helped was that ESPN wasn't a dream job. It was I have all these assistant coach jobs lined up because I just became a graduate assistant. I just finished being a graduate assistant for Pat Summit, and I go on campus, do the walkthrough, could probably go to 1 or 2 of these places. And I'm feeling it. This is not what I want to do. I'm like, what people want to be in Pat Summit or the Coach K's will never happen again in college athletics. The loyalty, like both of them would have been fired in 3 years if they coached now. Like it's just not possible. And there was the transition. Pat was stepping down, and one of her assistants was coming in and brought in a new operations person, and he came from the world of football. And camps were my jam. The logistics and all that. He was like, have you ever thought about bowl games? No, because I don't do football. Football is soccer. He made an introduction to the, now I think he's the vice president of events. And I drove to Charlotte, had a conversation. A couple of weeks later, I'm at ESPN working in the events department. So I never was like, oh, me and my family, we watch College Game Day every Saturday. I have never had cable since I worked at ESPN. So I never have seen the network unless someone else is providing it, which was like the whole thing in my office. So it was not a dream job. So when I'm there, I'm an adjunct professor, and I created a nonprofit with my friend Maria Taylor. We were really doing what we were setting out to do, which was create and connect opportunities for minority student athletes. And she was blowing up, and we saw it as an opportunity for me to really dive into what we were doing full time. And it was not the dream job. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, the benefits, having pet insurance, all those little cute
Pet
things,
insurance.
pet insurance. And like the Disney passes, yes, those were sorely missed. But I still get into games somehow. And if I need a Disney pass, I can still get it. So, but I've always known there is a bigger picture for me. If I'm running for office, I'm not surprised. So seeing the opportunity to dive full time into the nonprofit was something that really drove me.
So what made you decide to start work?
People were taking advantage of donations when they should have been paying invoices. Right. So the nonprofit was intentional about the career development, professional development, and a lot of our partners wanted us to actually be a source of talent. They wanted us to go out and find the talent, bring them to them, all of that. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. That's another conversation. Those are other systems that need to be in place. And I am surrounded by a tribe of people who have seen me work consistently in this space of making sure, other people achieve their goals with their business. And two, if I can make a phone call, an email, a text that can get someone an interview, that's nothing. That doesn't cost me anything but my reputation if you mess up. But, and so I don't know if I didn't have the support of my tribe, knowing BREAKTHRU Brands was going to be there alongside me on the journey, if I'm doing it, but I'm so happy I did.
So we talked about Eastside Golf. Let's also talk about Moolah Kicks and what you did for them.
Yeah, Moolah Kicks, the only women's basketball shoe. Fantastic technology. I'm afraid of getting hurt, so I don't have time for rehab, so I do not go on the basketball court. But I have heard nothing but amazing things about literally how the shoe is designed for women's bodies. It's not like going to get a pair of Steph Curry's and getting them in your size, right? Like these shoes were built for your hips, how everything and how a woman plays basketball, it's built to support them. And she was blowing up. She was in a Microsoft Surface commercial during the NBA Finals, and she had just got picked up to be in Dick's Sporting Goods. And it was a big distribution for her, and she wanted sales associates to understand the technology. So when moms and players came in to buy the Steph Curry's, the associates were saying, "Hey, have you seen Moolah Kicks? Let me show you these shoes." So we helped them find about 16 community champions across the country to essentially be those champions in the community, right? To help those associates understand the technology of the shoe and to be a point of connection for the community coaches, the players, like, hey, you should check this shoe out. And she was very particular about who she wanted to represent the brand. And that's where Work's unique experience and network stepped in. She wanted basketball players who were on campus, who had desire to work in sales or marketing, right? And so to be able to go out in a very short amount of time and find those community champions across the country, from LA to Texas to Indiana and New York and Georgia. It really helped them. I believe they were the number one basketball shoe for women in the last year. It was like a big deal. So without being able to focus on the product, Work coming in to help you find the talent was the big support, the big lift for them. And so we're excited for what they are going to continue to do for the game, because the tagline, built by women for women, right? So, and Natalie is going to go take this. She's not trying to be the Nike of shoes, right? She's trying to be the Speedo of swimwear, right? Like, we are good at this thing right here. Come and get these women's basketball shoes.
You also, we talked about Eastside Golf and Moolah Kicks. and then Wilson Sporting Goods. So on a bigger scale, you did work with Wilson.
Yeah, and they are one of my favorite partners. They came through CAA. So CAA is a great partner of ours, creative artist agency. They also referred us to Eastside Golf, who was one of their clients. So Wilson wanted to be intentional about the commitments that they were making in the summer of 2020, and their initiative was called Allyship in Action. And so we came in to really support what that looks like from a talent workforce perspective. And I shouldn't be shocked anymore because the time has passed, but I am shocked. We got them to pay for 20 micro internships for minority student athletes to work in their marketing, their team sales, team marketing department, which is, 20, if you're listening, you're like, oh, that's not a lot, but those are 20-hour projects that a student athlete who normally wouldn't have had the opportunity to gain experience in something other than their sport while they're in college, they don't get, right? And so the Wilson team, they really embraced, and I don't use the word mentor a lot because not everybody's a mentor, but educated these future leaders in the different aspects of sport business and product, right? They create product. So being able to show them that if you have an engineering degree from North Carolina A&T, come on over here and help us design this zero waste football that we just launched, right? Like you can be whatever you think your degree is or what career you could get, you can find it in sports. And Wilson has been fantastic at creating those opportunities and just being a great partner. And I look forward to, I actually ran into Joe Duty, the president of Wilson at the US Open. I had to go see my girl, Serena. I don't know her, but she's my girl. And it's like this big, massive crowd. Everybody's trying to get to see the match. And I see Joe, I say, hey, Joe, what's going on, Joe? And you could see his look. He was so shocked that I remembered him. And I see Joe coming through the crowd. He's coming to me. I'm like, the president of Wilson is actually trying to meet with me. And he literally said, I'm surprised you remembered me. I'm like, you literally created opportunities for my community. You think I'm going to forget you? So I'm excited about our continued partnership and how they really want to be intentional, again, with how they engage talent and increase equity in their workforce.
Corinne, who's a good fit? What kind of company is a good fit to work with you?
A great fit is a company looking to scale. You probably have been running with a couple folks and you got a big investment, or you are getting prepared for a big investment and you don't have HR internally. No one on the team has any type of people experience and you don't really want to worry about that. That's when you call us. That is the bulk of our experience. We have talent acquisition, talent management, and a fractional CHRO on the team. And they're going to help you create those systems early so you stay compliant later as you're growing your business. Those are and they're fun, right? We get to grow with them and really support them. And because we're uniquely diverse in the language of sports, the nuance of sports, we know those challenges. We may get a call at 2 a.m. because the freelance photographer didn't show up for a shoot in Paris or whatever. So we're gonna be nimble enough to address those. And then for the larger organizations, you're pretty maxed out with your team right now and everything that they're doing because you're supporting a large organization, but you have you want to implement a strategic initiative, or you want to roll out a employee benefits program, something that is maybe new that you're looking to implement. We can come in and support that strategy and maybe even that execution, depending on the size of the team.
You said, Corinne, before we hit record a little bit about that you check all the boxes. And so I'd love for you to talk about that for a second. And do you get inquiries from people who are maybe head of DEI of companies because of that? So talk about what you meant by I check all the boxes.
Yeah, it's kind of like my tagline, I guess. It's the thing that helps people remember me. But I'm Black, I'm a veteran, I'm a woman, first generation American. I'm a dog owner. I have a Jeep. Like there's so many different boxes that I play golf. I love golf. I need to play more. That's why I'm going today, but I'm looking at the clouds. But I am whatever your cup of tea, whatever your flavor, whatever you're into, I might know something about it, or I've done it. I got the t-shirt. I'm even taking DJ lessons right now. So if you love music, I'm going to be right there with you talking about the latest Calvin Harris record. So I love it. I don't shy away from that. I embrace that because that's, again, I said earlier, like I challenge people a lot of times. I challenged Wilson. I'm like, you want interns that are student athletes, but student athletes can't do interns when you have internships. So we had to go out now and create a different type of experience for you to engage student athletes and assess them as talent, right? So, but if I don't speak some language of a specific community in some rooms, maybe I'm not being able to get that across. So I love it. And sometimes, we get those calls from DEI and we talk about what work is, and we ask like, hey, we are not just a novelty, we're a necessity, right? Like when do you bring in the HR team into this conversation? What does that look like so that in a year, we're not trying to chase you down to do business again because it was a novelty. That space it isn't in the budget anymore. But we know there are going to be people. There's a people budget. There's an HR budget, and repeat business. If you are committed to, diverse vendors or diverse business, engaging diverse business, don't just do us once. Don't work with us once. Have us repeat business for you.
I love it. Corinne, I just want to be the first one to thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thanks for sharing your story. If you've been watching the video, you can see the website. You can check it out at Let's Do Work, Let's Do WRK.com to learn more. And thanks, Corinne, for sharing everything.
Well, I have to thank you because I am excited for what I'm about to ask you after this conversation.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Corinne.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.